Wake up in the grind, clock ticking, 20 minutes flat, freedom main-handed, knives built where the real.
What's up, and welcome back to another episode of the 20-Minute Freedom Project. I am your host, Josh Lopez, and this show is for those who want ownership, discipline, freedom, and to build a life they've always wanted, one that is earned and not handed to them. Today's episode is called The Standards Audit. And the core idea is simple. What you tolerate becomes your life. Not what you want, not what you post about, not what you plan to do someday, what you allow, what you excuse, what you keep stepping over on your way to everything else. This can make you uncomfortable for the next 20 minutes, or it can make you uncomfortable for the next 20 years. That's your call. So let's get into it. There's something I want you to sit with. Your life basically is a receipt. It's the total of what you've repeatedly bought with your time, with your attention, with your standards. Not what you intended to buy. Not what you told people you were buying. What you actually walked out of the store with. Every single time and every single day. And I know that could hit like a ton of bricks, but here's why it's actually good news. If your life is the total of your standards, then your life changes the second you decide to change those standards. But here's the thing most people tend to miss. Standards aren't what you say you believe. Standards are what you enforce. And if you don't enforce them, life enforces its own standards upon your life, whether you like them or not. That's how you wake up one day and ask yourself, how did I get this far out of shape? How did my marriage get this way? How did I get this far behind financially? How did I become the guy who talks big and executes small? The answer to every one of those questions is the same. You tolerated a standard in some way that got you there. One small compromise at a time. One small negotiation at a time. Until the exception became the standard. Here's what makes this so hard to catch. Tolerance doesn't feel like failure. It feels reasonable. It feels like you're being flexible. It feels like you're giving yourself grace. And sometimes it is. But most of the time, it's drift wearing a reasonable disguise. It starts off with small things. You tolerate being out of shape because your work has been so brutal. You tolerate distance in your marriage because at least you're not fighting. You tolerate not knowing your numbers because thinking about them makes you anxious. You tolerate skipping your morning routine because you were up late and you tell yourself you deserve the sleep. None of those things feel like a big deal in the moment. But what happens is tolerance turns into your identity. First, it's just in this season. Then it's, this is just how I am right now. And then it turns into, I guess this is just my life. Think of the story of the frog in the boiling pot of water. Put a frog in boiling water and it jumps right out. You put it in a cool pot of water and you gradually raise the temperature of the water until you boil the frog. That is the drift. It doesn't seem like a crash or a crisis. It's slow, quiet acceptance of less than you know you are capable of. And the reason I could talk about this is because I've done it. I've tolerated things I should have handled immediately. Every single time it cost me more to fix it than it would to have addressed it early. That's why we're doing the audit today. Not to beat yourself up, but to get brutally honest. Because honesty is where the change all starts. All right, this is the work. We're going to go through 5 areas. Body, faith, being, bond, and build. If you were watching this, you see that I kind of messed up and I only did 4. But anyway, such is life. And for each one, I want you to hold 2 questions in your head. What am I tolerating that I know is beneath my standard? And the second one is, what is it actually costing me? You're not going to rush through this. You're going to spend time in every single area. Let's start with your body, because your body is the most visible receipt you carry. What are you tolerating? Low energy that you've just accepted as normal? Poor sleep that you keep meaning to fix? Maybe too much caffeine to get through your day? A body that doesn't reflect the discipline you say you have. Eating in ways you know that are not serving you. It's easier than putting forth the discipline. No consistent movement. No real physical standard. And I want to say something here before I call this out any further. This is not about aesthetics. It's not about having 6-pack or looking a certain way. This is about your body standard and what it says to the rest of your life. Because when your body standard drops, your mind starts negotiating in every other area. Your confidence drops, your energy drops, your presence with your family and your friends drops. The ability to lead drops. Your standards everywhere else start to follow. Your body is the foundation. And if the foundation is soft, everything built on top of it is negotiable. What are you tolerating in your body right now that you've been calling a season, but is actually becoming a standard? You're going to name it. And then you're going to ask yourself, what would it cost you to actually fix this? Because I would bet it costs far less than what you're tolerating is already taking from you. Up next, we have our faith. What are you tolerating here? No real prayer life, scripture study that you know you should be doing, but you keep moving to tomorrow? A morning that starts with your phone instead of with God? Going through the motions? Saying you trust God, but living like everything depends on you to figure it out? Here's what it's costing you. It's costing you peace in the uncertainty. It's costing you groundedness when pressure hits. It's costing you the foundation that makes everything else make sense. Because this is what I've learned about faith. It's not something you have. It's something you build. Every morning you show up to it. Every morning you choose it before the world gets to you first. And when you tolerate a weak foundation, you don't notice it until the storm hits. And by then, building it's even harder because you're trying to build under so much pressure. Your faith standard isn't a spiritual decision. It's a stability decision. It determines how you show up to everything else, which takes you to being. This is the one that most tend to skip in the audit because it's the hardest to measure. But you're not going to skip it. So what are you tolerating here? Scrolling when you should be reading? Consuming content about growth while quietly avoiding the actual growth? Of implementing what you've learned? Negative self-talk that you've normalized? A story about yourself that you keep rehearsing even though it stopped being true so long ago. Maybe it's holding onto knives in your back, like there's some kind of trophy or crutch. No study, deliberate skill building, no quiet time to actually think. Just noise. Constant, comfortable noise. And it's costing you clarity, focus, the ability to hear yourself think. Or listen to your gut. And more than that, it is costing you the person you could become. Because who you are on the inside is not fixed. It's being built or eroded every single day by what you are feeding it. The one who reads, studies, does the inner work, they think differently, make better decisions, leads better, handles pressure better. And the one who tolerates the mental noise and avoidance, they stay exactly where they are and wonder why the outer world never seems to change. You're behind the operating system. And what are you feeding it? The next one is a big one. It's your bond. What are you tolerating in your relationships? Passive distance with your partner that you've both just agreed not to talk about? Being present in the house, but absent in the relationship? Not leading at home? Not initiating real conversations? Not being the emotional anchor that your family needs? Letting disrespectful things slide because conflict feels worse than slow erosion? With your kids, being there physically, but checked out mentally? And I'm not saying this to pile on. I'm saying it because the bond area is where you can feel the most guilt and do the least about it. Because it doesn't feel so urgent. Nobody's leaving. Nobody's crying. Everything technically is fine. But fine is not what you signed up for. And fine is not what people who love you deserve. Here's what tolerating in this area is actually costing you. It's costing you the intimacy, the bond, the truth, the respect, the kind of relationship where your partner actually feels led, where your kids actually feel known. And here's the hard part. If you're not leading in your home, something else is. Either the stress might be, the phones, default patterns. The one who raises their standards in the bond area doesn't just improve their relationships. They change the entire atmosphere of the home. And the people who matter most start to feel it before you ever have to say a word. Now we get to your build area. What are you tolerating here? Is it inconsistent action on the things you say that matter the most? Letting people replace productivity, avoiding the numbers because actually paying attention to them means that you have to do something about them? Half-committed effort towards a full-size dream? Waiting for the right time, the right moment, the right level of readiness that never truly arrives? Maybe it's spending to feel better instead of investing to build better. It's costing you options, freedom, peace, future. Because financial pressure doesn't just create money stress. It creates marriage stress. It creates identity stress. It creates low-grade anxiety in someone who knows deep down that they're not moving the way they know they should be. And who tolerates mediocrity in their build doesn't just fall behind financially. They start to lose respect for themselves in the way they can only feel. So what are you tolerating in your build right now? What have you been calling a plan that's actually just delay? Name it. Because the gap between where you are and where you want to be in this area, it's almost never a resource problem. It's a standards problem. All right. Here's where most people mess up. They do an audit like this and immediately think, okay, I'm fixing all this starting Monday. And I get it. The awareness hits and the motivation spikes and you feel like this is the moment everything changes. But that's not how standards actually shift. That's how fake restarts happen. Here is the real move. Pick one thing you are going to stop tolerating this week. Not the most comfortable one, the one that, when you name it, sat in your chest a little heavier than the rest, or sent a chill down your spine. That is the one. And make it specific enough that you can enforce it. Not, I am going to get healthier, but I am training Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week at 6 a.m. No negotiations. Not I'm going to be more present, but phone goes face down in another room at dinner every single night this week. And I mean every night. Not I'm going to work on my business, but 100 minutes of focused work on my most important priority before anything else. Every day this week. Specific, enforceable, measurable, non-negotiable. Your standards become contagious to not only you, but everyone around you. How you do one thing is how you do everything. You raise the standard in one area, and it starts bleeding into all the other areas. The one who locks in their body starts showing up differently in their bond. The one who builds their faith and locks in that foundation starts making clearer decisions in their build. The one who does the inner work in their being starts tolerating less everywhere else. It starts with one move, one standard raised, one thing you stop stepping over, and then it spreads. Okay, here's your work for the next 24 hours. Pull out your notepad or your trusty notes app on your phone. Write down all 5 areas: your body, faith, being, bond, and build. Under each one, finish this sentence. I have been tolerating blank. Don't overthink it. The first thing that pops up in your head is usually the thing. Then circle the one that hits the hardest. The one you've been stepping over the longest. The one you've been calling a season that quietly becomes your standard. That's your one move. Choose one action you will execute for the next 7 days to raise that standard. Not forever. Not a complete life overhaul. 7 days. Because you need a start to that new personality and that new identity. You need a new standard. And 7 days of holding it will show you more about who you are becoming than years of thinking about it could ever do. Let me leave you with this. The life you want in your body, in your faith, in your being, your bond, and your build is on the other side of your standards. You're currently unwilling to enforce. And the part that should hit the hardest, you already know what you need to change. You've known for a while now. You haven't been confused. You've been tolerating the gap and calling it something else. So stop negotiating with yourself. Stop excusing what you know you need to do. Stop drifting towards a version of your life that you'll have to look back on with regret. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. And then you have to take action. If you know someone who's been comfortable in the wrong places for way too long, someone who's been calling the drift fine, send them this episode. Because sometimes they just need someone to hand them the receipt and remind them that they still get to choose what they buy next. Standards over feelings. Ownership creates momentum. Freedom is not found, it's built. I will catch you on the next one.